Welcome to Backstage with the Miskatonic Playhouse. Tonight we have with us Allan Carey, who is a Chaosium ambassador for the Miskatonic repository and director of Type 40. Allan, thank you so much for giving up your morning because you're in Australia. So thank you very much for giving up your very early morning to be with us this evening. Allan, please, if there's anything you'd like to immediately kind of introduce yourself with or plug, please do. I know you are an amazing member of this community.
Thanks very much. It's lovely to be here. We'll plug stuff later, hey? But that was a great and it's super early here. It's so early, but that's okay. I've had coffees.
And yeah, absolutely, lots and lots of coffees. Okay, so the question from the Playhouse to start us off today is, how did you get into role playing? Oh, it's a double whammy. How did you get into role playing and your role as Chaosium community ambassador?
I love this question because the how did you get into role playing? It's where it started, isn't it? And it's so different for everybody. And my first taste of role playing was when I was 15, a long time ago, in 1985, when I was introduced to it by my nephew, who was about the same age as me but younger, who took me to a friend's house and we played Ravenloft for an evening. And I had never seen role playing before, and it was an absolute revelation for me. And I played I don't know how my barbarian got to Ravenloft, but he was there, and we played for about 3 or 4 hours. And then when we went home that night, I spent the rest of the night designing dungeons on graph paper, and I was done. That was me done. It was an absolute revelation, and then I never looked back. It was fantastic. I just couldn't believe that you could do this, tell stories, play games. You just run around. I had no idea what I was doing, didn't care, absolutely loved it, devoured all the advanced Dungeons and Dragons books, and of course they wouldn't let me look at the Ravenloft module, but that's fine. Look a peek later on.
That's it, isn't it? It's the bug. Once the bug gets you with this stuff, it's contagious, isn't it?
It is absolutely contagious. It's brilliant. So, like, literally, 30 odd years later, I find myself in Melbourne, in Australia. I meet Mob from Chaosium, who happens to also live here in Melbourne. So, got to know him, became friends. Obviously became a licensee. Type 40 is a licensee of Chaosium, and we do all kinds of things with them. And then obviously Mob asked me to be an ambassador for the Miskatonic repository. And being in Australia, obviously that letter arrived by kangaroo. I just got the letter out of the pouch, read the letter, sent a reply back to him. Said, yes, I would love to do that. What a fantastic opportunity. And that's how I became the ambassador. One of the ambassadors, obviously Nick and Bridget as well. And we all sit there doing what we can for the community.
It's amazing. There's actually, I have to say something that I found, but there's actually a fair few of our community in Australia, isn't there?
Oh yeah, Australia does and has always punched above its weight. All the way back to Terra Australis originally coming out. You got your Mark Morrisons, your Penelope Love, all kinds of different people here in Australia who have been part of the Chaosium family for decades. And the current team, probably 6, 7, 8 people strong.
Yeah, wow. I mean, I'm veering off our questions. I will revert very, very quickly. I promise. It is an absolute testament, though, I think, to what Chaosium are doing with 7th edition. And obviously prior to 7th edition, why there's such an amazing community that roll through these editions. It is outstanding. Brilliant. Okay, thank you, Allan. Our second question is from Charles. He's got a couple of questions here. The first one is, between Type 40, your company, and the Seeds of Terror, those amazing scenarios you and your team create, you're doing a lot of things with Call of Cthulhu. What's coming up for you?
That's a really good question. And that's its own 30 minutes. You know, we've got a lot of stuff at the moment. Obviously, Seeds of Terror was a big effort. That was one scenario a month over 12 months. That was the goal we set ourselves, and we managed to hit that. We did really well just hitting that goal, so that was really nice. And we took a bit of a break at the beginning of the year from writing things for ourselves, because we wanted to focus on releasing the 3D digital gamer prop sets for some of the Call of Cthulhu scenarios. So we released a full set of digital props, which you can either use in person or on virtual tabletops, for the starter set, for Doors to Darkness, and a whole range of them for the Masks of Nyarlathotep campaign. And essentially they're all digital reference cards which have information for players and keepers on them that you can use during your game, but they also have a QR code which you can scan with your phone or device, which will bring an augmented reality, fully detailed prop up from the game. And my background is in prop making and engineering and carpentry, and I made loads of physical props for Call of Cthulhu. My entire Call of Cthulhu life, since I've been playing, paper props, physical props. I just love putting props down on the table. Obviously, then everybody started playing online, and I still wanted to make props, so we got together and we started designing these replicas of the 3D physical props in digital. So we did all of those. So we've got more of those planned for the future. We've also got a couple of scenarios up our sleeve. It's a bit of a ramble list, but there's a lot going on. I wrote something a while ago that I'm quite keen to see come out, which is another slightly longer format Call of Cthulhu. When I say I didn't write it, I helped write it. It was Phil Anderson that wrote it. Now, Phil Anderson, member of our team, he's a fantastic writer, and if you look for his name, you'll see it everywhere in Call of Cthulhu. He's been writing Call of Cthulhu scenarios since Terra Australis back in the day. He's written for Horror on the Orient Express. He's done all kinds of things, and he's one of the other writers on Seeds of Terror. So we write together. He's an editor. That's, this is, you'll probably appreciate this. This is why we appear to do quite well, because the team that we have is so good. Anyway, so we've got some scenarios coming up. We've got some longer format things coming up that we want to try. We want to try and combine scenarios with digital props as well. Nice. There's a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah. So I think there's a challenge there. If you're listening to this, Phil Anderson, check out Phil Anderson's history within Chaosium. Let's find that out in the communities. Let's start posting below. Where can we see Phil Anderson? Because I want to know. Let's have a little look and see what comes up.
I hope he's
and I hope if Phil, you're watching, I hope you're slightly cringing right now, going, "Oh no."
I tell you what, we wouldn't have Seeds of Terror if it wasn't for Phil. We wouldn't. It's been an absolute pleasure working with him, and we're currently working on a non-Call of Cthulhu thing, which is we're going to be publishing a vampire thing that a chap called Brian Holland wrote. So we're pulling all of that together at the moment. That's
I've had a little nose as well, and it looks fantastic, much as all Type 40 quality does. So yeah, absolutely superb. Thank you. Brilliant. I really love that, and I love the. I'm gonna Google Phil Anderson myself, actually. Phil, you're gonna get Googled. Get used to it. Okay. So this one is, how did you get involved with the mythos, and what still draws you to it? So we had your Ravenloft kind of introduction to the world of role playing, but mythos, what was your introduction to the mythos, and why are you still so drawn to it?
Okay, so what we're going to do during this interview is we're going to talk about other people for the rest of the interview, and not definitely not me. I'm going to mention as many other names of other people as I can.
Search challenge for everybody.
Search challenge for everyone. so when after got back to school, went to summer holidays, played Ravenloft, got back to school, finding people who's done this before, found a couple of people like you do, who've been playing Dungeons and Dragons, and then ended up in this will ring true for some of you, in a sixth form, lower sixth form. Some of the older lads playing this other game called Call of Cthulhu. So I sidled over to them and tried to get in on their game, and they wouldn't let me. And I bothered them. I was going to say mithered them, but about 80% of the people there won't know what that means. But I bothered them for about 6 months. Just let me play until eventually they said okay. And I made an absolute nuisance of myself in their game until they told me, this is not Dungeons and Dragons, it's quite serious, this is how we do it. And it was this group of lads who I'm friends with to this day, who I speak to regularly, who introduced me to Call of Cthulhu, a lad called Jace, who is probably responsible for all of my Call of Cthulhu mythos stylings and approach. So yeah, it was just basically latching onto it. I think it is for a lot of people, latching onto another group of people who introduced me to Call of Cthulhu, and it just blew my mind. It opened me up to this idea of investigative horror. It opened my idea up to this idea that just the whole cosmic horror mythos, Lovecraftian approach to things that isn't swords and sorcery. And I never looked back.
Nice. Okay, that's I have to say, being in education environment, being and I do get some side glances sometimes someone in the senior leadership team in a school who's going, I'm just going off to go and do my D&D Call of Cthulhu club, I'll be back in a minute. But that's it. And I've got some amazing, and I tell you what, sixth form students, they absolutely, because obviously with the themes and content and whatnot, but they are amazing storytellers, and it's so empowering to see these younger storytellers just eat this up and really kind of dive it. And I've actually one of the lovely things is with one or two of my students, and they are some of my drama students as well, but I've introduced them to the Miskatonic repository. So they're not writing in it, but they are now fans of it. So non-writers, but fans of it who want to be involved in it. It's brilliant. Selfishly, it's and I feel a sense of, I've brought someone into the community. That's amazing.
That is a nice feeling. Nurturing the community is really satisfying. But after I found Call of Cthulhu in sixth form, there was not a lot of education going on after that.
the A levels kind of went like that, did they?
Kind of did, yeah.
yeah. Okay. Well, brilliant. Okay, so the last question from Charles, and I have to say these are great questions. So thank you, Charles, for putting these forward. The last one is, for a scenario, do you prefer efficiency or originality, and why?
Okay, so the short answer is I prefer originality, which is an interesting take on it, because a lot of the Seeds of Terror, all of the Seeds of Terror are efficient, but they are also all original. Although on the surface of it, they all look like they lean on common tropes. The Mummy of Pemberley Grange is a mummy. There's lots of common horror and mythos tropes in there. But having listened to Mike Mason chat and talk about writing as much as possible before I started writing and delve into things, he's always saying things like, I love seeing new takes on old things. You'll hear him say that a lot. Yeah. So I was like, okay, let's do that. New take on something old. Mummies. What do mummies normally do? What do deep ones normally do? Take all of the old tropes and just try and do something original with them. So I prefer originality over efficiency, because I find originality to be exciting. When I see something that's original or new, it makes me want to delve deeper into what's behind why it's original and play it. I don't mind old tropes. I don't mind unoriginal ideas done well, if that makes sense. But when I see something new and original, it excites me because I want to be involved with it. I want to pick it apart. I want to see why it's why it's original and what it's doing that is original. Yeah. So originality over efficiency every day.
Do you know, I think if I remember correctly now, this last summer around the August, July time, you held one of the Miskatonic repository kind of sessions where we had guest speakers in. Obviously, Mike Mason was one of the speakers, brilliant. And one of the things that I've taken away as a writer as well, which I absolutely now try and encapsulate, is exactly what you've just said, Alan. It was you and Mike talking about subverting the norm of horror. So here's your mummy, but how do you subvert that? How do you make this a more interesting and investigative horror friendly scenario? I really took that to heart. And that came actually from one of the Miskatonic repository chats, one of the open kind of discussions you had with guest speakers. So if you haven't seen them, check them out. They are on the Miskatonic repository Facebook chat. I think you can go back and watch them. Is that right, Alan?
You can. They're all recorded. They're on the Facebook's Miskatonic repository creators circle Facebook group. That's a mouthful. They're all on there recorded. And depending on when you're watching this, there's another one coming up very shortly. These are all strange time-dependent things, aren't they? But yeah, we'll have another one. We've got a series of topics that Mike talks about, and it's always edifying to listen to him because he has decades of experience.
And selfishly, I would say one of the things I love about those things before we move on to that, and I'm very time aware as well. What I love is that in those moments, I've been there on chats and groups and I've been messaging. And next thing I know is you and Mike are either responding to my question verbally online, talking out about, okay, well, Newman's just said this, or it's a response in the chat. So it's such a great way to interact with the community as well. So just shouting that out to all of you. With the next one coming up, check out the Miskatonic repository Facebook page, the creators content page. Check it out. There's a new talk coming up. Make sure you get on there. Alan's going to be there. Mike Mason's going to be there. Is there anybody else, Alan, we're expecting in that chat? I have seen it today and I have gone, going.
Yeah, it'll be Mike discussing a new topic, which is about choosing a voice. And me sitting there nodding and listening along, getting as much information as I possibly can.
Yeah, ideal. Okay, brilliant. Well, brilliant. I think that's a huge resource community. Make sure that you try and plug into that one, please. Okay, so we've got so Lewis is asking us, how do you go about writing effective and succinct scenarios?
Okay, effective and succinct scenarios. The Seeds of Terror scenario range, which were all, let me start from right at the beginning. I went to a convention, I watched MC Black, who's a chap here in Melbourne who does a lot of self-published writing for Dungeons and Dragons, on a panel with Mob and another person whose name I now forget, talking about self-publishing. And that was before we'd done anything. So that was like 2019 maybe. And I came out of that buzzing, like I can do that. I've got one of these. I've got one of these brains where I see something and I think I can do it. Yeah. And then I go off and I give it a go and realise there's a little bit more to it. What the motto for Type 40 is how hard can it be? It turns out usually it's fairly hard, but we get through. So we came out of that thinking, right, I want to do this, but I want to do it different. And I want to do a series of scenarios which are easy to prep, easy to pick up and run, last one night, no longer than 2-3 hours to run. And so I had this idea of what I wanted to do. I didn't know how to do it. Now, with all the other stuff that I do, you can say I make these shields and hammers for Type 40. I've got an engineering background, and I'm a great believer in process. So I love reliable, repeatable processes. So I knew where I wanted to be, which was writing short scenarios, succinct short scenarios. I knew where I wanted to be, I just didn't know how to get there. So I sat down and I wrote myself a process, and I have a framework document of how to write a Seeds of Terror. And it lays out paragraph by paragraph or section by section how many words to put in the intro, what the intro does, what the intro says, what the player introduction has to have in it. So I could give you my framework document, sit down with you for 10 minutes and teach you how to write a Seeds of Terror. So it's literally just a reliable, repeatable process. So once I'd written my process that I wanted to follow, all I had to do is come up with the content and the themes and the ideas. Okay. And then I would just plug it into my process and write my scenario. And after I'd done the first one, and this is the same with all the physical things I made, my first hammer I made took me 3 months. And the next hammer I made took me 2 weeks. And then now they take me about 3 days each or something like that. So after you do your first one, your process, you just got this reliable, repeatable process. And that's why they all appear the same. Now, anecdotally, Mob will probably kill me for this, but he's play tested nearly all of them. And he said, you know what I like about these, Alan? That they're the McDonald's of scenarios. And it's a compliment because they're tasty. They're bad for you. No, they're not bad for you. But you know what you're going to get. And that's, hearing that come from Mob, that was perfect for me. I knew I'd hit the nail on the head.
Yeah, that's amazing. So, that is amazing. And I think what I'm going to take from that is somewhere in there, and I know it wasn't directed at me, but you said the words, I can sit you down and I can teach you how to do this. I might officially take you up on that one day, but we'll let you regret that later on.
Oh my God! Just write that down. This is recorded. You can edit that out, can't you?
I can. Yeah, that'll be gone. Don't worry, that'll be gone. Alan, a question from Corin, which is, do you have a favorite Miskatonic repository scenario?
I do. It's entirely self-serving. And there are a lot of great scenarios out there, like better than this one that's my favorite, much better than this one that's my favorite. This is my favorite because it was the first scenario I ever wrote. It's the Mummy of Pemberley Grange in the Seeds of Terror range on drive-through. And it's my favorite because it's silly. And it's a lot of fun. It was, like I say, the first scenario that I ever wrote. So it's got a lot of emotional weight in it. It was it's the one that you ponder over a lot. It's the one that you worry about a lot, but it's the one that I got to run for a lot of people. So it's not just my favorite because I wrote it or my first one, but it's the one that it's probably the scenario in Call of Cthulhu that I've ran the most. I've probably ran the Mummy of Pemberley Grange 100 times. And that's on conventions, on Zoom, on meetings for friends, for people all over the world. It was one of the scenarios that I ran during lockdown in COVID. And people may or may not know, but Melbourne was one of, if not the most locked down city in the world. I think we over a year in lockdown. So it may sound a bit odd, but that Call of Cthulhu scenario maintained my sanity for quite a while.
It's like a reverse role there.
Got a reverse role, that's right, yeah. Got a 0-1. So yeah, it's probably my favorite scenario. It's the one I know inside out. It's the one I know the most. I love running it. I love seeing people's reactions, and it has given me a lot of pleasure running it for people who are getting a lot of pleasure out of it.
Yeah, I think that's the thing as well. We all, for those of us, all of us here, community content creators, we know how much passion, time, love, thought, creativity goes into our scenarios. And when we get to run them, when we get to bring them to the community, it's a huge deal. It's huge. I can't believe that's your first scenario, Alan. I have to say, I'm going, what? Did you not have like a scenario that like bombed? Did you not have a scenario that kind of did this, did that? Because if that's your first scenario, wow, that's amazing.
Well, it's got nothing to do with me. The first scenario that I wrote in the Mummy of Pemberley Grange, the original idea, the original sort of seed, that little seed of an idea came from a friend of mine, Nick Holland, who I've known for absolutely years. And Nick Holland plants seeds in my brain regularly.
Right.
And then he just steps away like it's nothing. And then I'm like, oh, right, okay. He's the reason why Type 40 exists, Nick Holland. He said to me more than a decade ago, massive Doctor Who fan, he said, can you make me a TARDIS? This was when I was a carpenter. And I said, well, I could. He said, I'll buy the materials if you'll make the TARDIS with me. So I said, how hard can it be? So we built TARDIS. It was very hard, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then from there, I went on to making shields and hammers and other things. Years later, the original discussion about Seeds of Terror and what it would be was with Nick at that convention. We both.
Is that where the name came from? Seeds of Terror?
Yeah, it kind of is. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's
because it's a beautiful name. It's a beautiful name.
Thank you. The Seeds of Terror range. This is diverting a little bit from topic, but the Seeds of Terror name, the idea for the Seeds of Terror evolved from something that was not scenarios. It was originally going to be a series of mythos location maps with small 600-word paragraphs about locations to spark the imagination for other people to write scenarios.
Yeah.
And that evolved into Seeds of Terror. But yeah, Nick plants seeds all the time. So yeah, Mummy of Pemberley Grange, his seed.
Yeah.
I wrote it, and you're saying I can't believe it was first scenario. Google Phil Anderson.
Phil Anderson, there he is.
Phil Anderson and goes, "This, Alan, what have you written? This is all over the show." And he does this. He does this great editing and looks through it, and that's how Phil and I started working together. We worked on some other stuff, which we didn't publish, and then Seeds of Terror started. I asked Phil if he would work on it with me, and he agreed. And then we have this really neat, reliable, repeatable process where we back and forth. He'll write something, I'll go through it and commit what we term word murder, where we slash it to pieces, or I'll write something and he'll do the same to me. It's quite brutal, but we love it. And that's how it happened. But yeah, Mummy of Pemberley Grange, absolutely my favourite. It's caused me no end. Given me no end of pleasure and fun. And at the end of the day, you've got to love your own work, haven't you? You've got to.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you're going to play it, you're going to play test it, you're going to send it out to people. You want the feedback, good, bad, whatever. You want to take it and you want to evolve it into something. But something you've said there, Alan, and community. This is one for you as well. Just the relationship with the writer and the editor. You know, that can be a huge deal. Whether it's a friend, whether it's one of your players that you trust to say, you know, this is my material, this is a scenario I've written. Can you look at it? You know, having that second pair of eyes can be so significant. And I think what is it? The phrase, I can't see the wood for the trees. When you write your own scenario, you're editing your own scenario. And I know I'm guilty of this as well, is just having somebody else look at it and go through it. And I know that there's a lot of people at the Playhouse who really value that relationship between writer and editor, to just make sure you've got someone to have a look and give you that opinion. So
absolutely, get them to read it, and if they can then explain back to you without you having told them anything what's going on in that scenario, you're probably going in the right direction.
Yeah. Okay, brilliant. Well, we're going to move on to the next question because we've still got a few surefire questions here. So I have to say, I love this question. This is from Charles, who's been a favorite with our questions tonight. He's thrown loads in, but this one is a wonderful question. If your dreams could come true, what would be the theme, location of a massive Call of Cthulhu campaign directed by Allan Carey? So, you know, think Uber campaigns, Uber scenario. If Allan Carey was in charge of that, what would we have?
I can say for certain that dreams do come true because I've already run that campaign. I ran a 15-year campaign, week in, week out, with several different groups over that 15-year period. of Call of Cthulhu, which was based loosely on Shadows of Yog-Sothoth, taking some of the themes from that, but also homebrew, like 80% homebrew, sandbox, living the Cthulhu life. Now that happened over a 15-year period, but if you condensed it down to actual play, it would probably only be 8 years, every Sunday night. And that actually happened, only 8 years every Sunday night. But that was my dream come true scenario. It's already happened. We played it with several different groups, and my partner was in that scenario, in that campaign, all the way through. Wow. But it went from different groups as we moved different houses until we culminated it a few years ago now. I won't give you any spoilers, but it came to an end. And the whole campaign was about tragedy and sacrifice. That was the underlying theme: tragedy and sacrifice. And my dream campaigns, the games that I love the most are I see role playing in two different lights. One of them is you're playing in a campaign that's set in the world of Call of Cthulhu. So let's say you're playing Masks of Nyarlathotep, which happens to be in the world. Yeah. But you're playing this campaign. And then the other side that I see is you're playing Call of Cthulhu, you're in the world of Call of Cthulhu, and Masks of Nyarlathotep just happens to be happening in the background that you get pulled into.
Right.
So there's this whole sandbox world that you're playing. And that's where I like my games to be. And that takes commitment from players and from a keeper, and it's long-term planning. It's lots and lots of stuff happening. So that's my dream. So my dream is to have the time to be able to do that again, because as you get old, those time commitments become more and more difficult. And I've just sat down a couple of weeks ago and started penning the first few paragraphs of the follow-on campaign for that, which starts. No spoilers, because people who play this might end up watching, but it's a follow-on campaign from that huge campaign that a lot of people have played, who will be playing this next one, that starts about 5 years after the final events. Wow. So I'm going to start writing that.
I think you've just described the dream keeper that everybody in this community is looking at, just going, I'm sorry, did you say a 10-year keeper? A 10-year scenario that we can then take a small break from and then do another campaign? That's, yeah. I tell you what though, but that doesn't work unless you have as you said, the players that are invested in the story that you're writing, that table commitment, isn't it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's commitment on everybody's part, and it literally is commitment. Everyone, you take breaks here and there, but to play weekend that long, that's the dream, isn't it? It's like it's to just have a group like that. It's just brilliant.
Carpenter, engineer, Seeds of Terror, Type 40. I bet your table gets the best props.
We give it a go. I certainly do. I do like putting impressive. I like people to. This is a complete aside again. I like people to be able to, when the players go and find a 20-kilo slab of gold in a cult room, nobody knows what 20 kilos really. Like, the players pick it up in one hand and run off, don't they? And they don't understand how
heavy it is.
You put 20 kilos of something on a table and it clunks, and you're like, okay, how are you going to deal with that? Yeah. And that anchors them in the world, but that's an entirely other topic talking about.
It is, but but a brilliant thing, for us to think about. What a really kind of refreshing way to think about it is, what can we offer the players? What can we offer our players to think about? Okay. Oh, yeah. So we have a question from Stu. This is a forward-thinking question. This is a community question, actually, for all of us, but in terms of where you see us going. So where do you see the community going in the next 5, 10, 20 years?
That's a long view, isn't it? That really is. The community has exploded over the last 12 to 24 months. I've watched it happen. It's just phenomenal. The Creators Circle Facebook group is approaching 1,000 members. When I jumped in there originally, it was probably a couple of hundred. Yeah. Chaosium support for the community is going from strength to strength. They absolutely are the foundational backbone, mixing my metaphors probably, of the community, and the support that they give is absolutely phenomenal, second to none. I've not seen creative directors approach the community and offer AMAs and live video questions. Like, you can sit down with Mike Mason every couple of months, every 3 months, and ask him questions. That's just unbelievable to me. That blows my mind.
Yeah.
So the Miskatonic repository community group is just growing, and of course Chaosium now partner with the writing group for where you can, I can't forget the name of it. It slipped my mind, but you can go
the Storytelling Collective.
The Storytellers Collective. You can go and sign up for like $30 or $40, and they'll, you know, run you through a course on how to write or whatever. That's phenomenal as well.
Yeah.
So
I've done that course. I've actually done it myself 2 or 3 times. Well, 2 times now. Going to be signing on for the 3rd time. Absolutely superb. Really enjoy it.
Yeah. So that's strength in the community. People like yourself popping up, the Miskatonic Playhouse. So the community is supporting itself. There's lots of resources. Bridget keeps her, you know, the creators helping creators spreadsheet up. So there's a big network of us. That's now. So in 5 years' time, with some, you know, constant support, and that's just going to keep growing as well. There's also the other community groups which, you know, like that Nick looks after the RuneQuest side of things. He looks after he looks after everything, Nick, basically. And you know, the 7th Sea and Pendragon areas of the, you know, the community as well. That's there, and that's just bubbling away there. Pendragon's new edition is coming out soon.
Yeah,
so
that's
excited. Pendragon's like my 2nd favorite game of all time.
Me too.
I was playing Pendragon, like, that sounded really braggy, but anyway, I was playing Pendragon back in the day when it first came out. I loved it. Absolutely ate it up back in the late 80s, you know. So that, you know, I can see those areas of the community getting some attention and starting to grow. You know, organized play may become a thing.
That's amazing. And I think just to shout out someone you've mentioned there, Bridget Jeffries at Symphony Entertainment. She's outstanding. You know, a real community member, really kind of providing opportunities for just so much. And there's the directory that Bridget has kind of, you know, she's put together there as well. So there's lots of different people within that directory that you can advertise what it is that, you know, the things that you're offering within the community, whether it be editing, map making, playthroughs, anything that you can offer in the community. You know, Bridget is a fantastic community resource, and Symphony Entertainment is amazing. And I believe in the very near future, they are also going on to live Twitch streaming, Twitchy things, which is amazing.
If anybody should be Twitching live streaming, it's Bridget. She's a powerhouse. Absolute powerhouse. I don't 10 years and 20 years, that's a long way away. That's bonkers distant, isn't it? Let's talk about role playing in 20 years. If I can predict role playing, that would be very, very clever. But digital stuff is big, you know, Roll20, VTTs, Foundry, all of that. Yeah.
I will. So the one thing I'm going to jump in there with, Alan, is and hopefully you won't find this shameless plugging of yourself, is I think I was quite early in the crowd that was swarming to your digital interactive products for Massive Nyarlathotep. So I personally, just jumping on the question that wasn't asked of me because I asked it from someone's behalf to Alan, but just throwing in my own tuppence there. I think that what Type 40 have done there with the creating the props, the fact that you can, you know, I've sat at a table with my friends running Massive Nyarlathotep, and I've said, and here's this, and they've scanned a product and they've had a 3D model of an artifact in front of them. That, for me, especially, I have to say, Alan, I know you're here for an interview. I think you're ahead of the curve, my friend. I think you are. I think you're showing us what is to come with tabletop role playing. Whether it's something that we can do in person around the table, which I was very lucky enough to do with this, but then my group then had to recede to digital. So we actually had the option to let's scan it in person, look at it. Wow, we can see this on our phones, but yeah, we're scanning in the moment, looking at it. But then we also when we went back to a digital tabletop, we were still able to interact in that level. So in my humble opinion, that nobody's asked for, so I apologize, community, is I think that's a big part of our future as well, is finding ways to make tabletop role playing relevant in this very digital facing age that we're in.
I love thinking about that sort of stuff, and obviously we all suffered over the last couple of years, but digital gaming kept some of us sane. And being able to interact with props digitally, augmented reality, being able to see, look at, manipulate, investigate artifacts from your games up close and personal without actually being up close and personal, it just seemed like a natural progression to me. And I think digital games, even though I'm like old school gamer, physical, like to sit around a table, I also love playing online as well. There's the emerging community and emerging players are embracing digital content more and more. On Roll20, I think Call of Cthulhu is the second most played game.
Yeah.
And we've just released. We've just soft launched the starter set on Roll20 as well.
Oh, brilliant! Yeah.
Fantastic. We will release Masks of Nyarlathotep and Doors to Darkness on Roll20 as well in the coming months. That's
very exciting news. Very exciting. I have to say, play on a few different forums, but Roll20 is something that I kind of. I think that was my first introduction to tabletop role playing. So that's where I've got my I don't know, my jam. It's where I know my buttons. Yeah. Brilliant. Okay, so Allan, our last question for you this evening, and again, thank you so much for your time, because I know it's very early morning for you, late evening for us, and again, selfishly, sorry community, this is a question from me. With the new official books coming out from Chaosium, so if they're already out, apologies community, but we have in the immediate future, I know they're out in PDF for some of them, none yet, some not, but we have the Cults of Cthulhu. We have, I have to say, I'm really, really stoked. I'm really excited about the Regency scenario coming out. There's a few new things coming out. So there's a Time to Harvest, with Chaosium has been brilliant in, with James Hayek kind of posting those the sessions that they've been running, which are fantastic. And if you haven't watched them, please watch them, because they're great fuel for Miskatonic repository as well for your own scenarios. But what are you, with new material, Allan, what are you most excited about kind of bleeding into the Miskatonic repository community?
I'm a huge fan of source book settings. So source book settings, you've heard me go on about campaigning and running games within world settings. So I'm a huge fan of source books for things like Berlin, the Wicked City. What's Berlin like? Will we see? Oh, he's got it right there. Yeah, of course. What a fantastic book.
Brilliant.
David Larkins, superb writer.
Yeah.
I mean, if he brings half of his creative talent to Pendragon, then wow. So yeah, settings. Maybe other European cities, maybe other places around the world. I'd like one of my first, the very first source book I bought for Call of Cthulhu was Terra Australis, and obviously then that updated recently in the past few years. You've got Terra Australis books, you've got Berlin, the Wicked City. There's plenty of stuff. There's maybe new Arkham stuff coming out. So that'll be really nice, and that's always a great setting. So I think that it would be wonderful to see the community embrace different aspects of Call of Cthulhu in different countries that wasn't necessarily New England, America. My heart sits in the 1920s for Call of Cthulhu. But obviously Regency's fantastic. The Gaslight would be a lovely thing to see more of. That would be really, really cool as well. Yeah, so the variety is, there's a lot of variety, a lot of untapped variety.
Yeah, I think that what the most amazing thing is, going off what you've said, is because of the source books, the material that's out there, it just provides our community, the Miskatonic repository community, a huge amount of fuel to go, right, I'm writing this scenario, when or where can I put it? Not just what is it, it's a when or a where as well, which can really add a depth to what we offer as a community.
Yeah, and absolutely. And doesn't Call of Cthulhu just give you the opportunity for not only what, but when and where? Like lots of other settings are just what, here, now. Just, you know, whatever other role-playing game you're playing, whatever IP it is, it's just, it's in that spot. But Call of Cthulhu, it's just so broad.
Yeah, amazing. Allan, I'm going to thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being here with the Playhouse. We very much appreciate you being here. What I'm going to ask you to do is, please, if there is any plugs or highlights or people you'd like to shout out, please do tell us, because I can assure you that myself, along with the community, are going to be there with Google tapping away to find out what's going on. So please, Allan.
I would just like to thank the community for being so vibrant. It's absolutely fantastic. It's really great to interact with everybody on the Facebook group and elsewhere. Really looking forward to seeing people at different conventions as we start to travel again. So that's absolutely fantastic. Thank you for doing the Playhouse, because this is going to be a great community resource. Like, the energy is absolutely superb. And if anybody would like to check out what we do at Type 40, then you can find us at type40.com.au. That's the website. If you would like to follow us on Twitter, you would find us at the TARDIS Guy, _TARDIS_Guy. That's a throwback from when I had how to do social media. You can chat to us on Twitter there. And of course, if you are interested in looking at the Seeds of Terror range, you can find that on Drive Through Roleplay. The easiest way to find it is probably just to search for author Allan Carey, which is me. Yeah, thank you very much. It's been great chat.
It's been lovely. Thank you. And again, thank you so much for being with us this evening or morning. Thank you very much. As we draw the curtain on tonight's performance, we thank you for joining us and look forward to inviting you back to the Miskatonic Playhouse. In the meantime, you can also find us in the links below. And if you'd like to submit your scenario for us to play, email miskatonicplayhouse@gmail.com.